Welcome everyone to Inside Diverse Cinema. Today we're going to be talking to my dear friend, writer, producer, director, Dion Watkins. So we're going to dive in today. Thank you guys for joining us. And yes, we're going to just dive in, Dion. And just first of all, thank you for being here because the life of a director never it never
Absolutely.
stops, right? It never stops.
Stop. Yes. Even after you're done, promoting and marketing the film, it just takes a lot. So yeah, I'm glad to be here though.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much for being here today. We're going to talk about your beautiful, beautiful film, Afterlight. I'm so excited about it. And for those who haven't seen the film, it is on the film festival circuit. It's making its way. We're going to talk about where folks can see the film. But before we dive into that, I want to talk about you, the storyteller, so that we start this and frame this because you and I go way back into a fellowship we were in together. And I admire your work so much, so very much. I want to talk about you as a storyteller and how you begin your journey.
Yeah, gosh, I think we're all storytellers in a way, like we all have a story to tell. And just growing up, I'm originally from Atlanta, and my family is just full of storytellers. And even when I was younger, I remember just hearing stories, and I had I want to say great uncle, but he would just tell the most elaborate, amazing stories. I wasn't sure how many of them were true or not because they were just so. I would just remember them being so amazing. And to hear that kind of storytelling is just something that I think is rich in my family. Some of my early experiences with storytelling was like sixth grade, I think, and I had to, write a piece about someone dear to me. And I don't want to get emotional, but I'm getting kind of emotional talking about it. But it was about my grandfather, and he's no longer with us. But it was a story about, it was like sixth grade, a story about how he cooked in the kitchen. And the way I remember it was that I was, talking about how he prepared certain foods and the smells and the aromas and the richness of that. And people would come up to me afterwards and basically just say, wow, that was really well done. They could almost smell the bacon and the different elements. I don't remember all the things I talked about at this time, but just smell the different ingredients that I was describing. So I knew I had something kind of special then, but it wasn't until later in life that I really realized I really want to do this and I want to get good at it and make it my livelihood, so it's been a journey to get to that place, but it started really young, just hearing stories in the kitchen and overhearing, parents and grandparents talking about things, and it left a lasting impression on me, I would say.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Doesn't it start with our family?
Yeah.
Doesn't it start with the elders in our family and the stories that they tell? And they're riveting, and they don't even know that we're mesmerized by them, right?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I have a lot of fond memories of just that, just the food and the aromas and the people and our history kind of being shared and passed down without people even really knowing it. They're just kind of sharing what's going on in their world and sometimes Sunday dinners and things like that. But it all of that left a lasting impression on me, and I was like, I want to. Yeah, at some point, I decided to pursue it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. And you feel that in Afterlight, which is this mix of emotion and technology and memory.
Yeah.
It's emerging in that. And I want to really dive into that because one of the things that struck me about the film is that, yes, there's technology in it, there's science, all of that. But ultimately, in the end, you feel for this character. And I wanted to talk about, what did you start with? Was it the technology, or was it the character that that was your foundation for this story?
Oh, that's a great question. It actually was not the technology that came much later. It kind of started from I was in a state of like kind of half sleep and half awake, like kind of in between two dreamlike state. And I was awake enough to know what I was experiencing, but I was also sleep enough to fully be like, let my mind just be free. And so in that state, I had a vision of these two women that kind of came to me. One was in the future and one was in the past. And I was like, whoa, this is really interesting. But I wasn't quite awake yet, you know? And so their stories were intertwined, and I thought, this is really fascinating material. Let me write this down in my phone. So when I woke up fully, I started to just write down some notes in my phone and that sort of thing. And then some time later, the word afterlight came to me, and I thought I kind of made that word up, but ended up looking it up, and it means looking in retrospect or looking into the past. And I was like, oh, this is really good material. It just feels rich. And when I find those ideas that feel compelling and rich and vivid, I tend to dwell on them and go into them, you know. So these characters are really telling a piece of my story that's very personal. And so that's a lot of where the material for Afterlight came from, is like, this character feels like she can't move forward until she goes back. And so those are some of the themes that I think are starting to resonate with people, is this idea of like the past, and we all have a past, but it's like, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with those memories that aren't the fond memories, but are the ones that you really struggle with, you know? So that's part of where the story came from.
Wow, that is so deep. I want to say incredibly human. Incredibly human. And, as writers, we are dealing with the dark side of ourselves a lot. We're dealing with stuff that we don't want to admit. We're dealing with stuff that is out there. And we're super hard on ourselves. But I want to say that it also creates the most amazing art, the most amazing work ever. So one of the things we find, and you're finding, is that when you release that, you put that out into the world, you're not alone. And the things and those themes that you talk about in the film, you're like, oh, I have felt that exact emotion.
Wow.
That is, to me, what helps us. And when I say, people use this term a lot, heal.
Yeah.
It really puts us in this space of, it's okay. We're going to be okay. Even as we stumble through this life. That to me is, I felt that from the character. You could see, and the actress who played the main character, you could feel her struggle and also her desperation and her sense of urgency to get certain things right, to get the messages across. And I feel like, whoa, I want to see more of this film. So thank you for sharing that. It's so profound about the writer's journey. And I appreciate you saying that, sharing that today.
Yeah, I've been holding a lot of this stuff in for years, and I just appreciate this opportunity to just kind of talk through the journey to making this film possible. You know, you mentioned the actress Ninja is her name, Ninja DeVoe, and very talented actress, but we found some common ground in that pursuit of perfection, that kind of desire to to do things the right way. And with craft and with art, it's like it's those nuances and those mistakes that sometimes make it special, and so we found some common ground that we were able to tap into in the material. And she rewrote certain lines to fit her voice a little bit better. And, we really made it special, something that we both could feel hopefully proud of.
And it shows. It showed, which leads me to the question of what's your entry point? Is it the visuals? Is it the music? And we'll talk about the music too. What is it that gets you grounded? And you say, okay, I have this blank screen in front of me.
Yes.
What gets me going here? And in your case, it was a dream. So it's a visual, but how did you expand on that? What was next?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So for me, it was kind of putting my humanity, my truth, my honesty in this kind of world that I wanted to create. So it's a science fiction world, but there's a deep truth embedded in that. And I thought this, when I have those sort of epiphanies, or these moments of this is really fertile ground for a story, I get excited, and so then I pull from personal experience to bring it to light. But the sort of initial gut instinct of I have to tell this story is what got me going, and so I started to write a feature film about this story first. And I wrote a feature film called Afterlight, and I was sending it out to people, and I thought, this is such a, like you mentioned, visuals, but it's such a visual story that I thought telling it in a short form would be very helpful for people to see the fuller vision, because it kind of leaves you wanting to know more about these characters and where it's going when you get to the end. And so my wife, Sharita, I want to say her name, Sharita Starks Watkins, she's an acting coach as well as an actor in the film. She said, why don't we have a fundraiser? And so I wrote a short film, and then we started fundraising and crowdfunding that. And it wasn't until she gave me that idea that I thought we could do this. And then Jade, who was in our fellowship, gave me some important tips on how to crowdfund and raise money. This was my first time doing this, and we raised over $17,500 to tell this story. And I think it was, because it was so personal, I think that personal element made it kind of universal, so even if you may have not experienced exactly what I'm talking about in this film, you may have had stumbles in your life, or you may have made mistakes and tried to go back and fix things that are in the past and they're gone. So how do we reconcile and deal with those emotions and feelings and thoughts? And so from a very personal place, I started to really sort of develop this story of these characters who are living with other people's memories. And I think there's also an element of modern society that, social media, where we're kind of peering into other people's lives and we're looking into their quote unquote memories, that I think is interesting, because this film deals with that. But it's as if you could take, instead of looking at a profile, you could actually embed that profile into you and what that would do to you. So it's kind of a commentary on our current state of social media and kind of, being bombarded with other thoughts and stimulated by other people's, imagery and what that does to us. So there's a lot of, it's complex what's happening, I think, in the film, and as it sits in our modern, society, if you will.
You're absolutely. And I'm so glad you touched on that, because in the film, at least for me anyway, it was so simple. It was a very clear through line as to what she was experiencing, what she had in front of her. But I still kept leaning in, because we didn't know what was going to happen next.
Oh, yeah.
It is interesting you talk about memory, because even in memory, and we can say this, it's still very incomplete and unpredictable even when you go back to your memory, because sometimes our memories are distorted.
Yeah.
Changes with every experience we have, the further and further you get away from it. And of course, dealing with, trauma, you're going to reconfigure that memory. So that is something you can totally explore and go tons of places. It can be like a whole series.
I know sometimes when people see the short, they're like, we want a series, because you can go in depth, and really explore people dealing with not only their own traumas, but other people's traumas as well, which I think is just a fascinating premise. And so I'm just so thankful to the people who donated. There were some people gave $25, some people gave $2,000. I mean, it just came from all over, and I just am so grateful that I was able, because it could just be sitting on my laptop. Instead, we're actually talking about a finished film because of the gratitude of a lot of people that related, hopefully, to my story. So
That is incredible. Incredible. I think you can certainly do like a whole conversation around that and how people felt connected to it. I think that's incredible. And I want to.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, that's okay. What were you going to say?
Well, I tend to know that I'm, not alone sometimes. When I feel these deep feelings and thoughts, I just wonder if other people out there can relate. And so just the wonder and the desire to know if other people can relate pushes me to do it, so that it can hopefully communicate like we're not alone out here. There's, that we're connected in some kind of way.
Which leads right into my next question about technology. And you spoke about how sometimes we were scrolling through and we realize these thoughts not necessarily our own. Is this story a bit of a cautionary tale about memory and technology?
Bingo. Yes, absolutely. It is completely a cautionary tale about a lot of things, but definitely about technology. I think we're in a place now where we're seeing the ability for technology to help us with mind-computer connections, and help people who have disabilities that can recover in a lot of ways. And so I just, it's also there's that piece of the story that we see in the film, but there's also kind of a cautionary, let's be careful with this technology in the wrong hands. It could make a turn for the worse, and I don't think it's in the wrong hands or anything like that, but I'm just saying, just to be careful with technology that's this powerful. It's like a question of a lot of my favorite films draw the question of who are we or what are we becoming, or that sort of thing. And I think this film definitely hits on that note of a cautionary tale for sure. Yes.
Who are we? I think that's the central question we're going to be asking for millennia, even when we go into the Himalaya mountains and we meditate on it.
Yeah. Who are we here for? Yes.
Right, exactly. The monks are still trying to figure out. We know we're trying to figure out down here, right?
Right.
Wow.
Yes.
Oh, that's so deep. And of course it asks the question about how much of someone else's experiences do we embrace?
Yeah.
I mean, and we say this, and you saw what recently happened with the social media companies. We won't name them all, but social media companies that had some litigation recently, and they were at fault for influencing and affecting our young adults. So this is real. When you talk about technology and it being used properly or improperly, it really is doing something to the human.
Yes. I even find myself like using it sometimes and feeling overstimulated, and it kind of ramps up in terms of anxiety and, just thoughts and feelings that I don't like. So I try to take breaks and just use it sparingly. I'll post and get off and, that sort of thing. But, it's just when you're growing up with this much access to this much information and imagery and positive or negative or however you feel about it, but it's just is it changing who we are, and if so, in what way? I kind of like asking the question as opposed to trying to think I'm smart enough to answer it, but I just I think probing that question is profound in and of itself, and something that I think hopefully can hopefully help our society.
Oh, thank you for that. Thank you. I don't think we have enough technology stories in our space. We could use more.
Yeah.
They're getting deeper and deeper, but we could definitely use more, particularly in our space as storytellers and filmmakers, because you can never have enough questions, particularly with the advent of all these new technologies like AI coming out. Different, and you can use it for good or you can use it for something different.
Yes, absolutely. And
Absolutely.
as being a Black filmmaker and in the science fiction space, is somewhere that I didn't necessarily see myself going as a creative. I didn't grow up seeing like people that look like me in that space a lot, and so it's definitely takes a bit of courage to even go there, and say we belong here, but I think we do. And I think, there's going to be more stories and more storytellers embracing this, because it's just your imagination can really run wild, and you can ask questions of our, humanity and society in ways that I think are very special and unique. So I hope to do more in this space and really embrace the possibilities. Yeah.
I cannot wait for that. Cannot wait.
Thank you.
And, in addition to the film, and for those of you who are going to see the film, this is I don't know if I'm going to be spoiling anything, but you also wrote music.
Well, so let me clarify. So I wrote a song called Afterlight. The music for the film was composed by a gentleman named Matt Cohen, who is a fellow USC alum, but he is a brilliant composer. He composed the score that's in the movie. I was so compelled by the material of Afterlight that I composed my own song as kind of like a mini soundtrack. And that is kind of what Afterlight might sound like to someone like me. So it's got this kind of upbeat but dark and something interesting in the song that I hope people get to check out the song Afterlight in addition to the film Afterlight.
This is the best part of having conversations like this, because you see the full artist, literally the full artist. So the musician. So I'm sure that you write with a very different lens. Musician.
Yeah. And
I can only imagine your playlist.
Oh gosh. So I kind of hear ideas like when I'm on set, when I was on set for Afterlight the film, I would, kind of gauge what I was seeing through a filter of music in a way. Like, is this really connecting with me in a way, whether it was a performance or so there was, I wouldn't say I heard music as I was making the film, but I've directed music videos, and some of my palette is like, is this communicating what this song is communicating visually, and so I would definitely use that skill set as I was making the film. And I think the music in the film by Matt is really, really brilliant. We talked about Alfred Hitchcock, some, and that's someone that I really admire his work. And so we decided to play with, kind of Hitchcockian type of tones and suspense and, those types of things. And I think it came out in a fresh way. People may not know that, but now you do.
Yes, I love that. I absolutely love it. I want to kind of circle back to the fundraising, and I want to ask this because here's the thing. I love your opinion about what is the difference between a good script and one that gets made. Right? Because you were able to fundraise and get your script made.
Yeah.
And able to convey to audiences and helping them understand what the story is. And so that to me is incredibly compelling. So could you speak about that a bit? And which speaks to the craft, of course, but also the business side of making a film.
Yeah, it's a tough journey. This took me about 2 years to raise the money, so it took a while. And I think I'm in the independent film space, so I think the difference for me between a good script and a script that gets made, and from me, in my perspective, is really about how passionate I am about the material, or how passionate someone is about the material. Because where there's a will, there there is a way to get this thing done. And so I decided to take a big bite, and kind of try to tell a longer short film. This is like 17-minute long film. But it's just, I think just that grit, that passion, that, desire to see this thing get made in whatever form, so I was so passionate about the idea that I was like, I'll do it as a short film. Maybe I'll do it as a scene, or, maybe you get to that point where you just write it out on paper to see it yourself. Maybe you get a few friends and shoot it on your iPhone just to test if this is your vision or not. But the passion behind it, I think, is what's going to get it done, at least in the space that I've been in kind of independent filmmaking. From a studio perspective, I don't necessarily have that expertise, so I don't really know when they get a good script versus something they know they want to make, what decisions go into that. But the passion on an independent film side, it can really get it done.
That is so true. It's so true. You figure it out. And it's like the universe aspires to help you.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really matter how long it takes. And as we know, the industry is always reminding us that the projects that we're seeing on screen, it was a 20-year process. So realistically, so in 2 years, that's a drop in the bucket for some people.
Yeah.
But for real, it's very lengthy because so much happens along the way. And there's that thing called life that pauses us, derails us. We have to deal with it. And that's real. This whole concept of making art and still pushing forward and saying, I have this film that's like sitting here. We got to shoot and go, right?
Yes. I have projects that I've written probably close to 15 years ago that have not been made. I guess I haven't decided to take the step I took with Afterlight, but with Afterlight, I knew I had something that was, from a budgetary standpoint, reasonable. And then from a conceptual standpoint and character standpoint, something I just knew I had something to say. And so I tend to not rush those ideas where I don't feel like I have anything to say. But if I do have something to say and it's deeply personal and I'm deeply passionate about it, I will pursue it. And this is kind of my first step doing that. But I want to do a lot more of it because it's just so fulfilling to push through your fears, push through your anxieties, push through is anyone gonna like this type of thing, and just make it, just do it, So that's kind of what got me to where we are now. Yeah.
It's beautiful. And so, how many film festivals are we counting? Because I think
Oh gosh, I'd have to look it up. Yeah, several. So we've been and winning awards also, if you can believe that. But it's won in New York at the New York Shorts Awards, the best sci-fi short film. It's won in Ottawa Film Festival in Canada, best sci-fi short, as well as London Women Film Festival gave us best sci-fi short. And we've got several more to come, but the truth is we've not gotten into more than we've actually gotten into. And so those things, I talked about memories before, but those are the kinds of things that I would be like, oh, why didn't we get, this one or that one and that sort of thing. But instead of that, I've been trying to just focus on the wins and the successes. And now that we have an Instagram for the film, it's like people are reaching out to us as opposed to us just kind of blindly going out. So we're hoping to hear back soon from a festival in Tokyo as well as another one. And so hopefully we'll be able to get, a international audience at some point. But it's already resonating, and I'm just so grateful because it's been a long internal journey, but also like bringing other people along to help you tell this story, and they're asking you tough questions. Why are you doing this way? Why that? But it was like, it's the journey of bringing people along. It forces you to answer some of those tough questions, and so I'm just really, really grateful that it's done. It's out.
It's amazing. It's to see how your story is resonating with people across the world. That's got to feel incredible because when you say you're creating, you don't know what you have until later. And then the world says, we love this.
Exactly. We love all your trauma. Give us more.
Exactly.
Right.
That's a deep one. That's a deep one. Trauma. But what's interesting about that, again, it circles back to what you said earlier about you're not alone. We're not alone in this journey called life. And when people see something that resonates with them, then the first reaction is yes. There is no hesitation, none whatsoever. And I'm so excited to see what happens. So excited. And, here's the thing. You come from a great school, right? USC. That's right. And so there's an expectation that you're going to do great things. You know what I mean? Yep. Just call it what it is.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say in general, what's your advice to students across the country who are currently in film schools right now? What is your advice to them? Because like you said, this was a journey.
Yeah.
And you're coming out of elite college, right? Elite film school. And you still have to do the work.
Yeah.
You still have to do the bloody work.
That's right. It's tough, man. But, I think so. I've seen technological changes in film, happen over the years from the beginnings of YouTube to, now people are talking about verticals and, reality television. We've seen a lot of transitions in the entertainment space. And I think, for me, it was like trying to find a way to like hold on to my voice and find my voice in the midst of all of that. And then once I found it, to hold on to it, because it's very, very personal, but it's also very powerful when you do find that thing that's special, and that you're not necessarily mimicking other voices, but you are influenced, of course, but you kind of find your thing. So I would encourage, film students to find their thing, find your voice, find what's special. You can go work in, verticals, and you can work in all sorts of fields, editors, sound design, but along the way, still make time to find your voice and in your specific, what brings you joy, what makes you feel alive. I would encourage people to do that, and you can do it a lot of ways. But for me, it was through writing, and embracing writing, the written word, as a way to tell stories, whether they were visualized later or not. I wrote probably a few scripts before I got to Afterlight, and so I would, and some of those scripts were kind of, I would just say, like, they were interesting, but they just weren't that thing like I knew I found with this, And so, but going through that process, like, I watched a filmmaker, I think his name is Jean-Pierre Jeunet, who did Amelie, speak, and he talked about how he had done similar, written several scripts, and I was like, I'm gonna nail it on my first one, But it just takes time, it takes time to get those bad ideas out and get to some stuff that's really meaty and good for you and good for the audience. So I would just say, like, find your voice, hone your craft, and keep writing, keep creating, keep just, regardless of other people's opinions, just get that thing that's special about you out.
I love that. What is special about you? I love that. Which, of course, leads to the question, how do we protect that? How do we protect our voice in an industry that sometimes wants to change it? Because even when you have your script and you have this concept, I mean, people call it collaboration, but sometimes they're really just trying to change your voice. And how do you protect that and not be swayed by that word called collaboration? Like, is this real collaboration, or is this you trying to influence my voice?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's a really, really profound, really good question. I think quiet time for me has been a way to protect that, finding time to get away from the technology, the phone, the laptop, and just, I take walks, and that sort of thing, to kind of think about who I am now and what I may have to say before it even gets to a story, and just finding that space and that time for yourself. I think can be really valuable to help you realize it's there first and foremost, and also to be willing to protect it. I got a lot of feedback in the process of making Afterlight, the short film, and some of it didn't fit what I wanted to say. Some of it made it better. I don't want to give away the ending, but there was an ending that I had that one of the producers thought if I just changed a little piece of it, it might resonate a little bit better. And so I made that change, and it helped, and it didn't change my story. So as long as your story and your voice is intact, feedback sometimes can be really, really helpful. And so I just kind of take what I know is right for the story. You have that gut instinct, that tells you when you're veering too far off away from what you originally intended. But I just say trust that gut, trust that instinct, and and I think just protecting it and knowing when it's right for you versus when it's something you can say thank you but no thank you.
That part.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh my goodness, I think that is the bane of our existence, and the Achilles heel for many of us is that thing called feedback, and where to put it, where to park it. It's pretty heavy for us as writers, because that's what we start off being, writers before we're directors, right? And so, the intuition is everything. It's everything.
That's the word I was looking for. That's the word. Absolutely. And I my brother was telling me about a film that was recently shown, and the writer, I think, was talking about another writer who wrote the original source material. I forget the name, but it was basically that writer was saying when he was starting to get feedback, it was like, where were you when the page was blank? You know, when there was nothing here, where were you? You know, and so these ideas, these concepts, these stories, they're coming from someplace, and that place is somewhere, like you mentioned, you want to protect. And so while some people have opinions and that sort of thing, but, just being somewhat cautious about who you let into your very precious space when it comes to getting your voice out, I think is important. So, because that's what's going to stand out in the world.
That's everything. Thank you for saying that. And I think that is what so many writers and creators need to hear. Yeah. Really, really protective of your space.
Yeah.
So I'd have to talk to you all day about the film. Oh my goodness, there's so much to talk about. Tell us what's next for the film and where we can see it. And I know you have a website and everything.
Yeah. So for right now, you can check out the trailer for Afterlight, as well as the song Afterlight, which I played all the music for and produced on my website, which is Dion Watkins, WATKINS.com. Eventually, the complete film in 17 minutes will be on that website. So you'll be able to come back, after I kind of do the festival run. Sometimes festivals don't necessarily want you to have it online. Some people don't care, but to be on the safe side, I'm just keeping it offline right now. But if we get into some of these future festivals, we'll be able to, check back online at dionwatkins.com, and you'll see where it's playing. Like, for instance, it played at the Chinese Theater with the Indie Night Film Festival, and that was an amazing experience. And so I put those updates on my website so people can know, oh, it's playing here, or it's online for this week, or online for these 2 days. So I would just keep checking back to see when it's going to be fully available. But right now, the trailer and song are out.
Amazing. And with so many film festivals, we're going to see it somewhere.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's good. It's coming. And then hopefully
we're going to catch it in the United States somewhere.
Yeah.
Wow.
And hopefully the feature film is really exciting, because you get more in depth with the characters and their journeys, and hopefully that will be the next way into this story. But I'm waiting to raise money for that and that sort of thing. So that, may take some time.
Wow.
Then
What an amazing foundation. Amazing foundation.
Thank you so much.
And I know before we wrap, I mean, the hour has gone by so quickly.
Yes.
I'm like, what? It is not an hour. Don't take that from us.
Right.
But I want to say, I would love to ground this in those who are anticipating seeing this film.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the things you want the audience to take away from Afterlight? I know we've talked about much.
Yeah.
But I know there are some things nuggets you'd love to have us walk away with, something profound for us.
That's a good question. And I kind of approached this film like I was purging a lot of things and exploring a lot of things, but there's two characters in the film that basically say the theme is pretty subtle, but they do tell the main character, it's time for you to move on. And I think that's something that I would like for people to get from the film. I don't think it's an overt thing. I don't think it's necessarily like something when you see the film, you'll take away, but I hope you get that, when mistakes happen or things come, that you want to kind of run away from, or memories that are just hard to shake, that there is a way out and you can move on and heal. And so in some ways it's a mental health film. It's a film about what memories can potentially do to people when you don't move on. But I want people to have that hope that you can move on, and there will be, something better on the horizon. And there's, like, my mom is just, she just encouraged me with some words that were just, I've held on to them, very simple. I think it might have been Arthur Ashe who said it, but I'm not sure. But it was, start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can, and you'll see the results. And so I hope people take those two things away from the film.
That's profound.
Thank you.
Dion, this has been so amazing.
Thank you.
With you, have a conversation with you. I admire you even more.
Thank you.
Hearing your journey. And I mean, this is a space for filmmakers such as yourself. And I'm so honored to just sit here with you, to know you, and to watch your journey. And yes, to be a participant as well as a spectator. Yes, I'm looking.
You are brilliant, LaChris, and I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to be a part of this. I know your work through the fellowship that we were in together, and just keep being you, keep doing your thing, because we need it. And this has been very, very profound experience for me. So thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Dion. I mean, you guys make everything. And we're going to stay in touch and just keep following the film. And we're going to be putting the links and everything where people can find and stuff in the description of the video and all of that jazz. And thank you so much for sharing your story, sharing your openness, and being so frank about your journey. And we appreciate that so much. So much. Thank you.
This is amazing, amazing. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us at Insight Diverse Cinema. We'll see you soon.